Shalom Aleichem. This Sicha, Mishpatim Aleph Chelik Chaf Aleph, has quite a few insights that didn't make it into the final Sicha that the Rebbe shared in the original Farbrengen. So let's go into this. It's quite fascinating, quite an introduction before the Sicha, and nuggets and akudas during the Sicha. So basically, the Rebbe starts off, it's the Farbrengen, Tavshin Chavav. The previous Sicha we learned Mishpatim Hey from Chelik Tazayim was Mishpatim Chaf Hey. This is Chavav, a year later. In continuation to what we said earlier regarding Chamor Seracha, that's the Indian of tzedakah, which is close kol mitzvahs that we spoke about earlier in the Farbrengen, and therefore it's called a mitzvah. Tzedakah is called a mitzvah stam, and Tanya explains in that. So we can focus now on the Baal Shem Tov's Torah. We should sit on it on this pasuk, which is Haydah. Like all the Torahs of the Baal Shem Tov, there are Haydah for Payil. Besides the fact that Torah in general is Haydah, so there's Haydah in the way we have to serve the Eibishter. But first we have to give an introduction. In this Torah, in this Nakud, in this lesson, there's a Chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov in comparison to previous Torahs. The previous Torahs followed what it says in the Kisvei Arizal, the Eishes Chachma, etc. As we know, the Rebbe says there were even Chassidim at Alter Rebbe, they used to learn the Eishes Chachma and Alter Rebbe, and the Torah because Eishes Chachma. And based on the Kisvei Arizal and the Eishes Chachma, the Torahs before the Alter Rebbe, the main avodah was negating the body, tiniest for sigufim, literally making it sore, making the body a bit difficult, self-flagellation. And the Baal Shem Tov came and was mechadish that the ikar avodah has to be besimcha. If this Hashem besimcha, don't break the guf, but work with the guf. Now, it's not as if the days before the Baal Shem Tov was no simcha, but the ikar avodah was tiniest for sigufim, and sometimes there was simcha. But the Baal Shem Tov revealed, I'm not sure if many of us know this, but the Baal Shem Tov revealed that the iked is simcha, and sometimes you have to have times to sigufim. So what's the priority and what's the secondary? As we know, the difference between people who are focused mainly on Torah and other people who focus mainly on Uvdin Tavin, Maisim Tavin, that even Mother Torah have to do a mitzvahs, and even Mother of the Tavin have to do Torah, but what's the iked avodah? So to over here, what's the iked? Where does simcha play? And the Baal Shem Tov came and said that it's the iked. And this way of avodah, the Baal Shem Tov explained in the pasuk Yisir Chamoy, even though this pasuk was existing for thousands of years, but we know that Komash Talmud Vasikas L'Chadash, whatever a Talmud will come up with, a real Talmud, was Nemer L'Moshe Messina. Until then, it was hidden. So too, until the Baal Shem Tov came and it was his time, people didn't see this in the pasuk, and it's already been printed what the Rabbeinu Nesienu said on this pasuk, etc. And we know what the Tzemach Tzedek says, that whatever is in print is forever. So we have to focus on this. And what's the Torah Baal Shem Tov? When you look in your chaymet, you'll see Soinacha. It hates your neshama. Now, let's bring what the Frierdiker Rebbe says, that just like a person has to know Chistoinus Atzmai, so too a person has to know Milos Atzmai. And therefore, when the Yid focuses on his Metzias, he knows that his Etzem is Neshama Duchnis. Because by a Tzaddik, the Iker Metzias is Neshama. Like we know what the Alter Rebbe says, that Chayat Tzaddik are not flesh, but they're Duchni. And because Amach Kulam Tzaddikim, so everybody is Duchnis. The only difference between us and Tzaddikim is that after it comes into the Guf and Nefesh HaBahamis, how much is the Nefesh HaLakis revealed? But the Etzem is Duchnis. So you have to know your Ma'il. But you know that the Guf and the Nefesh HaBahamis is Soinacha, hates your Atzmius, the Neshama. Because when you prioritize your Guf, then the Nefesh is Tafel. But when you prioritize your Nefesh, the Guf is Tafel. And therefore, there's not a comfortable relationship. The Guf doesn't like the Neshama. Even though the Guf comes higher than the Neshama, we know the Guf comes from Tayu, and the neshama comes from tikkun, and therefore, when Mashiach comes, and the feminine will overcome the masculine, and the feminine is the guf, and the masculine is the neshama, so the guf is higher than the neshama, and the neshama will feed off the guf. But nevertheless, now we're still in the time of Galus, and now the guf still feels separateness, and it feels like it exists on its own. It doesn't have an Eibishter. Now, the fact that the guf feels like it's independent comes from the fact that it comes from the Yesh Amiti. It comes from the ultimate independent existence with Hashem. So therefore you feel it. But the fact is, you still feel it. And that feels independent. So therefore the guf negates the neshama. Continues the pasuk, it's crunching under its weight. Hashem gave the guf the ability that should be refined through Torah mitzvahs. And therefore, you have to really break yourself. And the guf is lazy. It doesn't want to do it. It doesn't want to carry this weight. Not only is it not making the effort to fulfill the commandment to eat tzaddik, like the Alter Rebbe says, not everyone will merit to that. But even the idea of Al Tiyidasha, this is based on what's explained in Perek Dalet, that some of us can be the level of Tiyid Tzaddik, but most of us, at least Al Tiyidasha, right? Be a Beinani, don't be a Dasha. And each one of us has a free choice not to be a Dasha. Even that, the guf is negating. Because again, to be a tzaddik is much harder. You have to change your whole perspective and your midas, etc. But machshava dibra d'maisa, technically every one of us has the ability, and we're being lazy. So then continues the pasuk. You'll think you could think that you could hold back, that you should just start with siguf and break the chumriyas and forget the body. And this is a kasalta daitach. It's a thought. Kasalta daitach, sorry. It's a thought even according to Torah. Therefore, people did it. But the Baal Shem Tov comes and says, no, azoiv, tazoiv, imoy. And then the Alter Rebbe added that the Baal Shem Tov only, like the Frierdiker Rebbe explains, that the Baal Shem Tov only showed what needs to be done. And the Alter Rebbe showed how you could be done. Now, we know the Baal Shem Tov would say things, his Torah in the Eifem Pashut, even simple people would understand, because the Baal Shem Tov, before he was revealed and after he was revealed, was Kayav Anashim Pshutim. Before he was revealed, he was hanging around Anashim Pshutim and teach them Aleph Beis, and even after that, he would be Mekayav Anashim Pshutim through simple Torahs. And in that, the Baal Shem Tov is similar to Rashi, because Rashi Pshut Shal Mikdeh, he wants to learn with even children before Mishnah Gemara. But on the other hand, just like Rashi has Yena Shal Torah, so too the Baal Shem Tov, there's also incredible depth. As we explained in regarding the stories of Torah, that there's more tainug, even in these things that seem to be the simplest. There's bigger tainug, like the mashal of the Baal Shem Tov that sends his kid, a king sends his kid far and then he comes back. Basically, the kid had gone too far and lost his way, and so one sar manifests himself in the way the kid's at, and that was able to bring him back. So too over here, we're talking to the kids in their language. So it seems to be low, but ultimately it's the greatest tainug, and that's the Maila Pshitus. But through that, you get to the ultimate truth. Then the Rebbe continued with the Pirush Rashi that we learned in our Sicha. Now, at the beginning of the Sicha, the Rebbe said that Medav sich der Monen of the good Zeit. We have to remember the good times. It seems to be in the context of, because for a while there was a break of the Rebbe didn't say Sichas on Pirush Rashi because people weren't focusing, etc. So the Rebbe says we're reminding our good times, but now we're going into this Rashi, Gesida Chamor Saracha, etc. And you'd think that you could avoid it. Okay, there's a lot of Nekudas over here in the bottom. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's many Nekudas that the Rebbe brought up, but let's bring out a few. So let's point out Hadaf 76. The Chid, it's not understood. Why does it have to say Shema v'chadalta? And therefore Rashi has to add midrashay to come and teach you that sometimes you refrain, and therefore he has to warn you that you shouldn't think that you don't have to be Mekayim the Tzivah, etc. Now, the Rebbe asked in the Kudah, why does he have to negate Shema v'chadalta, just like he doesn't negate Hashiv Teshiven Eloi, even though over there it's Oyivcha? So the Rebbe said on that, like all the mitzvahs in Torah, that Tzivui itself negates the fact that you shouldn't think. In other words, when I tell you to put on tefillin, that negates the fact that maybe you think you don't have to put on tefillin. So why do you have to bring the idea that you would think that you wouldn't have to? Now, on this point, that all mitzvahs negate the fact that you would think not have to do it, the Alter Rebbe explains in Seif Perek Yud Beis regarding a Beinani, which is Midas Kol Adam, that has a bad thought. You have to push it away the second you realize it's a bad thought. So the whole reason that you have that thought is so that you should push it away. Because of the mile of iskafia that you get, it causes incredible nachas, like it says in Perek Chav Zayin of Tanya, there's two kinds of taste, and sometimes the geschmack of Hashem is that you push it away. So the point is that the reason Hashem gives us a mitzvah sometimes to negate the fact that you would think not to have to do it, because just negating the fact gives Hashem incredible nachas. But why does Rashi have to point out Shema v'chadalta. Therefore, Rashi says midrashay, that he teaches you the medrash that there's times that you do have to refrain, and therefore he points out over here you don't have to refrain, whether it's a kind of zakin of thing, etc., etc. Now, on the point that says Rashi it doesn't bring the point of Hayya B'Beis HaKvaris because that's very unusual. Now, even though you were able to learn that the Kavachemer v'Zakin La'ena that even covered Basav Adam you hold back. How much more so Kodesh LaKadosh Baruch Hu? Nevertheless, it does say it in the Mechilta, and therefore it should have said in Rashi clearly Derech HaPshat. That was the question. It should have said basic first. So the Rebbe then said, you would have figured that out by itself. No, because it says in Mechiltas, you think you still have to do it. And the reason Rashi doesn't bring it is because it's very unusual. The Rebbe smiled, didn't smile. The Rebbe, like in jest, the Rebbe said, Beis HaKvaris is connected to people coming and saying Minor Lashon. And then they leave the Minor Lashon and they go back. But how does a chamor with weight end up in the Beis HaKvaris? People should show up in the Beis HaKvaris. What's a donkey doing in the Beis HaKvaris? Fine. Then the two examples that Rashi brought correspond to the two things that can cause heter tainus. Behemes nachli masoi shel yisrael. Because at the time of the chet, the guf and nefesh bahamas atachas klipa behemes nachli, but nevertheless they're masoi shel yisrael. Rebbe says that without this heter, you have no permission to cause yourself pain. Hashem owns you, and you were just given the body by a pekudin, and because it's the kinyan of Hashem, so therefore you can't separate between things Hashem knows and things that Eibush is mashgiach. Everything is one. Fine. Now b'shas hachet, the gubin nefesh bahamis, the tachas memshala saklipa behemes nachli. But the Rebbe says they're not in the Beis HaKvaris. They're behemes nachli, but they're not in Beis HaKvaris. What does Beis HaKvaris symbolize? Total death. Why? Malakaim Beis HaKvaris. A yid doesn't belong in the Beis HaKvaris. There's no a kohen. A yid does not belong in the Beis HaKvaris. But nevertheless, it's masoi shel yisrael, like it says in Midrash Chazal regarding the donkey of Pinchas ben Yair, that even when it was stolen from him, it came to Shusanach, he didn't want to eat paydas that didn't have meiser, because even then the donkey of Yisrael doesn't change its metzias. Say that. As you can see, there's quite a few more nekudas, but we'll stop over here, and we should only have Atzlacha Rabba Muflaga. Sei gesund.